Hi guys, I'm Vitale, and on this episode of Laura in the Kitchen, I want to share with you my take on what I'm calling apple pie cookies. Now these are like little cookies that taste like apple pie. Now I've been seeing these everywhere on social media and Pinterest, and I've had so many of you ask me to make my version of them, and I think that they're absolutely delicious. And it's starting off with my basic roll-out sugar cookie dough, which is just, it's a must-have in your recipe box. It works every single time and just requires a handful of ingredients that you probably already have on hand. Starting off with good old all-purpose flour. Nothing fancy about it, just a basic. You'll need some baking powder and salt, lots of softened unsalted butter, eggs, sugar, and some good quality vanilla extract. That is it for the dough, and then we'll need a couple more ingredients for the filling, which are again going to be really basic and easy. But for now, let's get going on making the dough because it has to rest for about an hour in the fridge. Couldn't be easier, especially if you're making it in a standing mixer, because it does all the work for you. And I have mine fitted with a paddle attachment. I'm adding my sugar and my butter, and I'm going to mix these together until they're really well combined, and then we'll add in a couple more ingredients. I'm just going to take my spatula and just scrape everything from the side, and I'm going to add my eggs and a good splash of vanilla extract. You could also use a vanilla bean paste if you wanted to. I'm just using some good quality vanilla. Should use about 2 teaspoons. I might have used a tablespoon, but who's going to yell at me? There's nobody here to yell at me. And it can never be too much vanilla, so I'm just going to mix these to combine, and then we'll add our dry ingredients. That is looking great. Again, don't forget to scrape the sides of your bowl and to get a lot of this stuff off of the actual beater or the paddle attachment. Sometimes it doesn't get all incorporated really well, but that's why I always go in at the end and just mix it by hand. I'm going to add in my dry ingredients. Really easy. Hope I'm not making a mess that I can't see, but you know, it's not a party unless you make a bit of a mess. Oh, that's not so bad. That's not bad. I'm just gonna mix this together to combine. It won't take very long, about 30 seconds to a minute, and then the dough will be ready. My dough looks awesome. I have 2 pieces of plastic wrap in front of me. I'm going to divide my batter in half, or my dough in half. It's sticky now, but this is going to set in the fridge for about an hour, and it will be perfect. So, half of it there, other half of it over here. Try to get them as equal as possible. Now, you know, normally I don't really go for the whole perfect, even, yada yada, but in this case, you want to try and get them as even as possible. And now I'm going to just, and you can see it's sticky, but it's not like wet, it's not like batter like. And then I just kind of form them into a disc, wrap them tightly with the plastic wrap, and I'm going to pop these babies into the fridge to set for about an hour. They will be chilled, they will be easy to roll, and they will be perfect to be made into my apple pie cookies. So these are wrapped, in the fridge they go, and then we'll move on to the next step. My dough was in the fridge for about an hour, and I just took it out like 5 minutes ago just to kind of come to room temperature slight, so it's not so hard once we start rolling it. For the additional ingredients, you're going to need some applesauce. This is just regular applesauce that's sweetened, and I also have a pinch of cinnamon and an orange because I'm going to use the zest. Now, if you want to use apple pie filling, you absolutely can. I just prefer applesauce because that way it's just like a cookie flavored with apple and not just chunks of apples going everywhere, because if I wanted that, I would just make my mini apple pies, which are phenomenal. I have chunks of apples throughout the, in the filling. So for me, this is what I like, but by all means, the world is your pickle, or in this case, the cookie's all you, so you can use anything that you want. And I do like to add a little orange zest to my apple pie, so that's why I'm adding it here as well. I have a baking sheet here that I've lined with parchment paper. I also have my oven preheated to 375, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to just move things out of the way a little bit, and I'm going to need quite a bit of space, so I'm going to flour pretty much my whole surface here because I need to be able to roll both of those discs at the same time, pretty much. You'll see what I mean in just a minute. I'm going to take one of these, unwrap it, kind of work it in your hand just a little bit. Flour it well because otherwise it will stick. And then using my rolling pin, I'm going to roll this out to, I want about, I would say, a 10-inch circle. But you have to be careful because it will start to kind of break up and you might have to pinch it back together, but that's no big deal. You just want it to be about 10 inches round, about, I would say, less than a 1/4 inch thick for sure. Otherwise the cookies will be way too thick. And if you feel like you're not getting a perfect round or a perfect whatever, don't worry about it because if you want to, you can make 2 smaller ones instead of 1 bigger one. So really, it's cookie making. It's not science. It shouldn't be stressful. Don't be here with a ruler and everything. Just have fun because that is the most important thing, I think anyway. So I just want to get this to an even thickness. You can see this is not a perfect little round, but I think this will do. And now what I'm going to do is very carefully, I like to kind of roll it like so because I'm just going to move this here. I need to move it out of my way, but I want it to be on something floured. And now I'm going to roll the other one to about the same thickness, and then we'll proceed to the next step. Now I've rolled my second piece, and as you can see, I'm just making thin little strips. Now they're not going to be even because let's remember who we're talking with here. I want them about a 1/2 inch thick, a little bigger, a little smaller, it doesn't really matter. And because this is going to be for like a lattice topping, and I'll show you kind of how we put the whole thing together. It looks complicated, but it's really not. You just have to work fast so that the dough doesn't get hot, because if it starts to get hot, the butter starts to melt and it just won't roll really easily. So get a fan going and you'll be okay. All right, this is looking good. Now, to the very first piece I rolled out, I'm going to just take my applesauce and my cinnamon. If your applesauce has cinnamon already in it, then you can omit this completely, but this one doesn't. And if I had had a bit more time, I would have certainly made my own applesauce, which I've made here before. It's just that sometimes, to be honest with you, a little help from the store is not that big of a deal, in my opinion. And then all I'm going to do is just spread this nice and thin, really evenly, because I want it to be coated. You can see it's just going to have like flavors of apple running throughout, but it's not going to have big chunks going everywhere. So get this nice and thin. Now take your strips and just attach them, and don't worry if they break because you'll see what we are going to do. It's not going to matter that much once we're done with this. So just make like a crisscross pattern just like you would if you were making apple pie or your favorite kind of pie. Okay, now I've got a little biscuit cutter here. You could use a cookie cutter of any kind, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here and cut out little circles, and now look what I've got. I got a little apple pie. I'm going to pop that right onto my baking sheet, and I'm going to proceed and cut the rest. I'm grating some of my orange zest right over my cookies because I was way too excited for my lattice topping that I forgot to grate my orange zest right over the applesauce. But it's on the cookie, so it's all good. It's touching the applesauce, it's on the cookie, it is all good. And you don't want too much of it, but just enough. But you don't have to add it at all. I just really think that it adds a nice special touch, and I do love citrus with apples and cinnamon. I just think it's a match made in food heaven. Okay, these are going to go into the oven at 375 for around 10 minutes or until they're a beautiful golden brown color. I'll show you what it looks like when they're done. And if you have any scraps, you can re-roll them, even if they have some applesauce in them. Pop them in the fridge, let that set for a bit, and then re-roll them out. So it's really easy. My cookies were in the oven for around 11 minutes and they look beautiful. They're a gorgeous golden brown color around the edges, and the bottom just looks fantastic. Now I'm not going to lie to you. These will look a lot prettier if your stripes were a little bit thinner and you took your time, but because I have really bright lights all around me, I want it to kind of work a little bit quicker, otherwise the dough will get way too warm. So when you are doing the lattice topping, just take your time, make the strips nice and thin, that way they look a bit more even and a bit more pie-like. But reality is, it's hot in here, but they do look nonetheless beautiful, and I want to go for one. I think I'm going to go for this guy right here because it's got a lot of applesauce. You can see the applesauce right there. It's kind of thickened. Delicious. So good. You get that hint of apple, that cinnamon, but yet it's not overpowering or chunky. That is just the way I like it. Apple pie in cookie form. Really delicious. So easy. I mean, who doesn't love apple pie but in a cookie? Am I right or am I right? LauraInTheKitchen.com will have the recipe ready for you. Please remake these and share the picture on my social media. I would love to see your recreation. I hope you enjoy spending time with me, and I will see you in the next one. Bye-bye.